Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the She Who Glows podcast. I'm Holly, your host, and I have Ifey here today, who is going to be talking all things cacao and herbs. And that's where I first connected with Ifey a few years ago now, actually, which is just crazy the amount of time that's passed. And so, firstly, welcome, Ifey. How are you?
I am good. Thank you. It's always an open question. So it's like, how good do I go? All is well. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we will go into all the things that you're going through at the moment, but I'll start with how we connected because I like to do that on this podcast because I mainly have people who I've already connected with. And I connected with you through Instagram actually because I was just getting into cacao. I didn't even know what it was. I just felt intuitively pulled to cacao. And it was when I was doing my first yoga retreat and I really wanted to incorporate that with my yoga retreat. And so I reached out to you and you provided some cacao samples for them to try. And I think it was when you just started out your business as well. And so we've collaborated on a few of my events doing yoga and holistic healing where you've come along to some of them and we've provided some cacao for them. So I'm very grateful to have connected with you. And my experience with cacao has been absolutely amazing. I'm having it every day at the moment in little doses and it just opens up my heart. It makes me feel so grateful as well. Like sometimes I have moments where I just cry with it because I'm like, oh, I feel so amazing. So I'm interested to hear how you got into connecting with cacao and why you now share that with everybody else as well.
Okay. So, what's interesting is I've been a chocoholic forever. And actually, a few years ago, I connected it to I'm like, how much do you need to know my backstory? So I was born in Nigeria and moved to the UK when I was like seven, eight-ish. And my dad was a doctor there. And when he came to the UK, it's like they don't recognize your qualifications. So he had to, in terms of training, he had to go back to the beginning and he was like consultant level, which is like the top level. Come to the UK, he had to go like back to the bottom and retrain and go through the process. So he never lived with us. He was traveling all around the UK, being posted at different hospitals. I tell this story because he'd come back once a month, and when he did, he'd bring chocolate back. And this was a thing that I think I associated with like that homecoming. And it's only as fully probably like mid-30s that I was like, oh, that's why I have this thing about chocolate that I think my brain just latched onto it because that was really when I would have it. So anyway, so I grew up having like I love chocolate. Cacao, I first came across that, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I kind of got more into meditation, and things like that. I never really connected with it. I think it was always served, it just tasted gross. No one really explained anything. You'd usually get it before doing an ecstatic dance or something. You drink this disgusting thing. You wouldn't finish it because you'd be like, this is gross. And you'd hide it. And then you do your ecstatic dance and you'd leave. So I was just like, I don't understand it. But then when I was in Costa Rica, 2023, I was doing medicine making training like on the ground, like Mayan medicine making. And obviously cacao, well, not obviously, cacao has a rich history in with Mayan civilizations. So we did training on cacao, like making cacao, and we did it from scratch. We like got the beans, we hand roasted them on a fire, peeled. It was a whole thing. And then we went into the jungle and drank it. And I had this really kind of remarkable experience that I really wasn't expecting, where you just feel, I always say to people, it was pseudo psychedelic because I could feel and see everything in a very exaggerated format. Like my senses were really heightened. And you know, when you feel overwhelmed with emotion, it was that kind of feeling that everything was just like, and so at that point, I kind of went, I think I need to do this. Because I'd already been working a lot with herbs. And what I found was COVID was huge because a lot of people struggled in COVID and I didn't. And for a while, I didn't really get it when people were like, oh, I'm shook. I'd be like, why is this a big deal? And then I realized I had this toolkit. I was out in the countryside in my family home during COVID. I had all these herbs to support me. Like if I felt some sort of way, I knew the right herb to work with. And so that's when having that experience with cacao, I kind of put two and two together, like, oh, like you have the ability to show people how to use these different plants to change their emotional state so they're not stuck in the negativity and the anxiety and despair. And so I was like, okay, I want to do something with this. And so that's how I started making these cacao elixirs, I call them, because I put different plant medicines into the cacao to try and achieve a specific state of mind. Really long answer, sorry.
No, it's amazing. Like, I'm so glad that you went into why you first connected to that. Like, your dad always brought you back chocolate. And I love that you said it was like a homecoming, because that's exactly how I feel when I have cacao. It feels like a remembrance and that way of just coming back to myself. So for people that don't know what cacao is, can you explain what it actually is?
Yeah, so I just say it's chocolate in its purest form because it is chocolate comes from a fruit called cacao pod. And if you take the beans from that and you grind it into a paste, you get 100% chocolate. And so you've got different qualities of cacao, but it's really that pure, unadulterated bean in paste form.
Yeah, and you literally make it from scratch yourself and add all these different herbs in, and it just
I
you
I
go,
used to. I used
okay.
to make it from scratch. I don't anymore. I now get the paste from a farm in Peru that I kind of respect and I know how they work. It's small business life. You learn. When I started, I was happy to spend a lot of time and effort doing that. And then when you do the economics, I suddenly realized no. So I hand blend everything myself. So I get the paste and I infuse the different herbs in it. But no, I know I do as for fun. I will make small batches from beans, but I don't want to misrepresent myself. I don't make it
No.
all from scratch anymore.
Yeah, well, thank you for clarifying. And that's probably a good way for us to go into how you've obviously created this small business for yourself and you've been through a lot of like ups and downs with it of trying to make it profitable for yourself as well as all the time and energy that you put into it. So that's obviously the changes you've been making. So talk to me more about the business side of it, of obviously wanting to get cacao out there because you know how helpful it's been for you and how it can be so helpful for other people, but being a profitable small business can obviously have its difficulties. How are you finding that?
So I think it's interesting if you talk to many business owners, I say more product business owners, they always say, if I knew what I was getting into, I wouldn't have done it because there's so much you don't know. And interestingly, like I've always dabbled in entrepreneurship, but I always said I would never do a product, I would never do food. And so it was so funny how cacao happened that I ended up with a product that was food. Literally, when I was at the stage of launching and having to, check regulations, I was just like, how did we end up here? This was the exact thing I knew I didn't want to do just because of regulations, restrictions, and just care. If you're putting something into someone's body,
Yeah.
there's so much you have to do to make sure you're not making them unwell just from a food, hygiene level, and then also just interactions with their medical state, their allergies, their medications. Like there's so much to think about. And I don't think people realize that when you give someone something. And so I'm blown away because people, I make this stuff, I give it to them, they pop it open and they just with full trust. But that's how we are with it. I go to Sainsbury's and buy food and I eat it. I'm not like, oh, is this? But it's that thing that it's wild. So yeah, um, there's been a lot. There's there's a lot to navigate. In full kind of looking at where I am now, I wouldn't change it, but it's not easy. Yeah, it's not. There's just a lot of trials and tribulations. I almost need more specific questions so I don't just keep talking
That's
vaguely.
okay. You're doing amazing. I think that you've been doing so well so far to just start the business from the point of view of having that passion for it. And then I think the development that any entrepreneurship and business brings you is so worth it, even though it can be really difficult and frustrating at times. But your business is successful. So many people love the products that you sell. And I think what makes people feel so safe as well is not only your presence of your energy, but also the background of being a doctor as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what people say to me. Um, that's part of the reason I also started Eight Within was a big thing in my bonnet I have is kind of having room for everyone, tolerance. I think that's just like what being humanity comes down to. I don't care what you believe, but just be able to tolerate other people having a different belief for yours. And I found in the cacao space, spiritual space, there's a persona that everyone goes by. And some people are quite precious about that persona. And so there's an expectation for you to present in a specific way. And if you don't belong or you're doing it wrong. And in cacao, that's it's huge. there are a lot of myths that go around and people are very attached to them and people don't fact check. So they just regurgitate what someone else told them.
Mm.
And so if you come along and you say, I want to put honey in my cacao, some people will go wild and
Mm.
will leave like insulting comments on Instagram, will send you DMs about how blasphemous you are, disrespectful you are, just and I think it's, it's nothing to do with cacao. It's their own personal belief that gives them stability. And so when you do something that shakes it, they get completely shaken. And so they lash out at whoever they can find. But for me, I wanted to give people who I think would really benefit from cacao, I wanted to give them a brand that does that. I wanted to, it sounds awful. But when I looked on the market, I just saw a lot of craft bag cacaos, cacao in brown paper bags. And it was all very spiritual. It was very woo. It was all cosmic. And there was nothing that was like funky, cosmopolitan, and modern. So I was like, that's who I am as a person. Like, I want to have fun. I don't feel like everything needs to be so big and heavy. So I was like, I'm going to have a fun brand and I'm going to add different flavors to it. I mean, everything I use is all natural.
Mm.
I'm going to infuse it with these different plant medicines that others aren't doing. I'm not going to call it Mama Cacao. I'm going to call it something a bit more abstract and funky. Like, I just was like, let's have fun. And the people who feel like they're not invited into the cacao community because they don't present in a certain way will come. And what I love is that's exactly what's happened. And so I've been able to leverage my medical background because I was like, I want to have fun, but I want this to work. Most
Yeah.
importantly, I want you to drink it and be like, this tastes good and this makes me feel good. And so again, I just use my science background to leverage the properties of cacao that I know help to make you really feel good and add that to other herbs that work synergistically. And yeah, that's where we ended up where we are.
Yeah, and I love that you do make your cacao accessible for everybody. It's not just people who want to have a spiritual experience with it. You can just have it every single day. And that's what I use it for. I have it in the morning because I just love that slowness that it brings to my life to just sit with the cacao, enjoy it. I tend to go in meditation with it. Sometimes I don't. I just drink it because I enjoy the taste of it as well with the herbs and all the different things that you put in it. So obviously you've said for the benefits of it, it helps you feel good. What else from a scientific perspective does it help with?
Yeah, so cacao, I think is massively underlooked because most of the time, if someone talks to you about cacao, they say, "Oh, it's a heart opener," and they just leave it there. And I'm like, "No, there's so much more good stuff in there." So I always talk about it having six key compounds, and these I won't go through the names and be a super geeky, but the main thing is they affect neurotransmitters in your brains. So we call them feel-good chemicals. We have ones that increase levels of things like dopamine, serotonin, which physically help you feel happier, more the dopamine feels helps you feel more rewarded and gratified. It's the thing you get when you're scrolling social media when 1,000 people like your posts. The serotonin helps with anxiety, calmness, increasing your mood, helping you deal with stress better. You've got things like there's something in there called tryptamine I talk about all the time, which helps with your neural pathways. It works on serotonin receptors in your brain to help your brain really get into the state of neuroplasticity, which means the way your nerves communicate with each other can be changed, which means it really helps to encourage a behavior change and really support that. You've got theobromine, which is the thing that makes you feel like your heart is opening because it's actually, we call it a vasodilator. It opens your blood vessels and increases blood flow all over your body. It's also a stimulant. So it makes you feel energized. There's just so much. But long term, it can help with like vascular health. So brain conditions, for example, it can help with heart health. My God, there's loads. Inflammation, anti-aging benefits, supporting liver, but like from a physical perspective, it's amazing for keeping your body great. And they've done a lot of studies in these blue zones, the parts of the world that have the highest percentage of octogenarians. And they find the cacao is a staple in that. So it's just, and I do this, like people who are close to me, I try and just sneak cacao into their lives. I'm like, if there's nothing else you do, drink it. And I was on a government website the other day and I saw that they're recommending cacao for reducing blood pressure. And I know it does that, but I was like, wow, it's gone to that state that they're actually saying, drink this daily. And it's actually a known, what do you call it? Food or medicine for bringing down blood pressure. So there's a lot. And I'm not saying cacao doesn't have spiritual benefits. It absolutely does. But I'm just saying, like, let's not stop there. It's a full body. That's why I really get behind it, because I am someone who's big on holistic approaches. And it helps you from a mental perspective, physical perspective, emotional perspective. I could go on. I won't. But there's a lot of good stuff there.
Absolutely. And I literally was beaming when you was like, it's literally on the government website being recommended, because that just shows the advancement that we're going through at the moment, where holistic healing and practices and medicine is starting to be recommended so much more than it used to. It used to be so suppressed. So that just makes me so happy, because for me, like, the benefits of it has just been amazing. Like you say, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it just opens up everything and makes me feel so good. So, how does it make you feel? How has it changed your life, if it has at all?
Yeah, so I actually always say that when I discovered cacao, I'm someone who is naturally I'm a doer. I'm a fixer. I always say type A, and a lot of people say, what does that mean? So I'm like, oh, I thought everyone knew what type A means. I would say like type A in that if something needs to be done, I do it. I'm like, if you want something in life, you have to go out and get it. If I'm on holiday, I'm rarely kicking back by the pool. I'm the one who wants to go and do hikes, and I just like to do. Cacao came to me at a time when I was learning that the excessive doing wasn't actually helping me, and that a lot of the time I needed that pause to almost integrate, be, and give myself space, get inspired, and then do, and then stop. But before I was just do, 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 do. And if I stopped, which is really common, I would feel guilty. Like if you're not being productive, you're wasting your life. So cacao, I always call it slow medicine. I always talk about plant spirit medicine because I feel like there are two aspects to it. You've got the physical biochemical properties of a plant, and then you've got more of kind of the message from a soul level, which I think is this is my interpretation of plant spirit medicine, that we're all part of this one consciousness and we're all this small offshoots of it. And plants help us kind of are a channel by which our higher consciousness talks to us because we can just receive it easier. You drink a cup of passion flower, which I love, and you feel like you're in that surrender mode. I never actually think like passion flower is this different entity that's telling me to surrender. I feel like it's my higher self saying, you have got to relax. So for me, through cacao, the message I got was slow down. Like just slow down because you're missing the good stuff. And that's what it's really, really helped me with. It's even the, act of making cacao. And when I started, I would often put it in the blender because it was quick. And now I never do. It's always in the pan. What's interesting is in my house, we've got two kitchens down Osquai. It helps because I make cacao. So one kitchen's for making cacao. But we've got an electric cooker in one and a gas cooker in the other. And it's only a few weeks ago I realized when I make cacao, I always do it on the gas cooker. Like I have to see a flame. So it's this very intentional thing where you're slow, you're putting the chunks in, you're stirring, everything is just, I always whisk it. And it just brings this slowness and consideration to life. And I have found by by adding more slowness, I've had more unlocking, which has then inspired me because then I get the juice and it's like, okay, let's get it done. And then things happen. I'm more intentional with when I unleash the energy versus before it was like just frantic, like a fear-based doing instead of a inspired doing. I got there
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that, because I also feel the same as you. Ever since I was younger, I was always a go-getter, a doer, couldn't rest, would feel guilty for it. And when you have cacao, just that simple act, like you say, of making it slowly, and instead of doing things from that fear-based energy, it does bring you into that calm and that peacefulness way of doing things. And you're still doing it, but you're doing it more slowly and intentional. And I just think cacao connects you back to yourself and that calmness that we can all go about our lives with which I think a lot of us need nowadays more than ever, because life can be so fast paced and crazy. So I'm
Yeah.
so grateful cacao exists, and I'm so grateful that you're here getting it out to the people, because we need
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. And the one thing I didn't add, which is a big thing with cacao, is like cacao really stands for life. Like even when it was used in ancient civilizations more ritualistically, there was this aspect of acknowledging life and they'd give thanks to the gods for various things, but end of the day, it comes back to your life. But a big thing for me is the slowing down helps you understand, helps you receive, like you're not running towards the goal, you're living, you're in that living. And that's the cacao. I always say cacao is a seed. That's where all life comes from, a seed. It goes back, it's all from there. And it's just this remembrance that you're in the present moment because you're living. And so, yeah, it's just more gratitude for the in between stages between the big, you know what it's like. You have the big, oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, I'm going here. And then you forget the middle bit, and life is that middle bit. It's not actually the big peaks.
Yeah,
Just thought I'd throw that in.
100%.
Because that's another way of thinking that's flipped for me. Before I was like, it's the goal, it's the goal, is, and now I'm like, no, it's not. It's the in between.
Yeah, I love that because I was the same. Everyone's always trying to strive for the end goal, but it's about the journey and enjoying that. And I think because cacao is literally from the earth, it brings you back to that connection to yourself, but also to the slowness and that rootedness that the earth brings as well. Even just looking at the color of cacao, it's obviously brown, which is very earthy, soil like, and that's like fertile ground where things grow from. And that slowness of rooted energy really brings you back to that groundedness. And for me, I'm an Aries. I feel like I'm constantly going and doing things. If you believe in star signs, I honestly need that rootedness every single day.
Yeah. And same here. I'm an Aries. I'm a Sag Sun and Aries Moon. And that's what I say. When something happens, my emotional response is like, let's fix it really quickly. Like, let's be really quick about everything.
Impulsive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we've spoken a lot about cacao. Before we move on, because I want to go on to like the herbs and the other things that you put into it, can you talk a little bit more about the history of cacao? And I know that you said that it's like the Mayan culture where it came from and they used to do ceremonies with it, but I'd love you to delve a bit deeper into that if you could.
Yeah. So, I mean, cacao has a really long history. So, if you look at archaeological records, the first record of cacao being used ritualistically dates back to about 7,000, I lie, 5,500 BC. And it's a civilization called the Chinchipe, and that's actually in Peru. So, that's nothing. Everyone always talks about cacao and Mesoamerica and the Mayans. And I'm like, you've got to go further back because the earlier civilizations that would use it. But yeah, so the Chinchipe would, there's not a lot known about them, but they did find bowls and temples that showed remnants of cacao. And so they could see that people were drinking it, first of all, in liquid form, and secondly, they were using it in these official rituals. But as you move forward, you find other civilizations that span. So Mesoamerica is like Central America, your Guatemala, Costa Rica, Belize type of areas. And then you've got South America, where it originated, mainly Peru, Ecuador. And so throughout history, you've got different civilizations that use cacao ritualistically independently a lot, but it's just interesting when you look at the historical map because you've got the Olmecs, you've got the Aztecs, you've got the Chavins, and they're all drinking it in their own way. They're not, a big thing I say is, I've said a big thing I say so many times. I guess I say a lot of big things. Um, Cacao ceremonies today, I have a bee in my bonnet about that, just because they're not reflective of how cacao was used initially. So cacao, when it was used ritualistically, there's a lot of quite barbaric use of it. Cacao was really rare. So it was only used by like nobles, like only royals could have it, or people fighting in like the army. No one else was allowed. Women, children were not allowed to drink cacao. Peasants were not allowed to drink cacao. It was this big thing. So it would be used for offerings to the gods. First of all, if something went wrong, they would use it to appease the gods. If they'd be capturing warriors from their lands, again, they would do like quite brutal things like ripping out the hearts of warriors and mixing the blood with cacao and serving it as offerings to the gods to basically say, like, thank you for helping us conquer those lands, etc. I mean, if you think about like those times, it's quite rough and ready. It's so
Brutal.
that's why I always say I'm like, I love a good cacao ceremony, but let's not misrepresent today's where there's rose petals and kumbaya. Let's not pretend that we are doing something authentic from the Chavin civilization because we're not at all. So where was this? What was the question? I've just started ranting.
Just the history of it. You're doing great with it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
history.
it was used in a lot of religious ceremonies. So if people were getting married, cacao would be served to kind of bless the union, baptisms, to again bless the life of the person, funerals, to wish the person safe passage to the other side. Cacao would be made and offered to the gods. It was this big part of life. But the big thing is it was used as a currency because it was rare. And I've actually
Right.
discovered the other day, I can't remember, I think it's the Aztecs or it might be classic Mayans. Anyway, one of them had like a specific currency system where you get X amount of cacao beans gets you X amount of goods. And it's literally like two cacao beans for 10 chickens. It was that. It was like it was gold essentially.
Yeah.
that's a little bit. I
No,
could
that's
keep talking.
great.
I'll stop.
It sounds like they knew exactly what was up, that cacao is a special substance and that we just have no idea how amazing it is these days and don't appreciate enough probably. I know you do, and people like us that really do understand how beneficial it is. But the fact that we're all able to access it nowadays is amazing. So I know that you used to get your cacao from Peru. Is that still where you're getting it from, or is it from all different places?
Yeah, so I still work specifically with a farm in Peru, but what I'm expanding into is trying to fly the flag for the fact that cacao isn't just cacao, like any old cacao will do, because that was something I noticed when I started. My products are premium. They're premium because I get them from a certain place. It's very high quality, it's low batches. I know how much work goes into it, and I do a lot of handwork in there as well. But what I'd get is people being like, well, I could get a bag for £12 from Amazon. And so I realized like people just thought all cacao is the same. And so I'm on this big push to say all cacao isn't the same quality wise, but even the country it's grown in, the soil it's growing, how it's fermented, the cacao bean variety, all of those give you a completely different experience. And I've been lucky to work with a supplier who has biochemically analyzed the cacao. So I work with two different types from Peru, but I know how much theobromine, how much tryptamine, how much tryptophan is in each. And so I can be quite niche in that if I'm, so for example, tryptamine will help you go more inwards and be more mellow. Theobromine will help you be more energized and like, active. So if I was going to work with someone doing breath work and wanted to give them cacao to support that or ecstatic dance, I would give them a high theobromine cacao because I know it's going to uplift, energize, and prime them for that. If I wanted someone to do deep meditation and self-inquiry, I'd give them a high tryptamine, low theobromine one. So these are just examples to say that you can be super selective and you can give someone an amazingly tailored experience when you understand different cacao varieties. So yeah, what I'm doing now is getting cacao from all over the world that have different properties, and it's not launched yet, but you'll be seeing with Eight Within more of an offering that is kind of cacaos of the world and cacao to suit whatever goal you have, as opposed to only working with Peru. I started with Peru because the farm I'm working with is close to where the Chinchipe tribe I was talking about. So for me, I was like, this is the home, like this is the origin. I'm going to use that, but it's time to expand.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I have I forgot what you call them because I know you've changed the names of them, so do correct me, but I have the one that uplifts you, and I also have the one that's more about like going inwards for intuition or just finding that more calm state, and it really helps me to go into meditation. And I don't think people realize, like you say, that there are such different cacaos, and also that you add in herbs into it as well, which I don't know any other cacao that's sold that has herbs in it unless you do. But talk to us more about how you got to put in certain herbs into each one and created the herbs and the cacao packs that you have now.
Yeah. So again, if you look at the history of cacao, it was not often, but in certain civilizations, Chavins definitely they would use cacao along with San Pedro in these shamanic initiations. They could see the synergy between the two. And theobromine, because it's a blood vessel opener, it and increases blood flow, sorry, I can't speak today, all over your body. It can speed up delivery of whatever plant medicine, herb, etc. you put into it. So that was a big thing. Again, like the science part of me came out when I first had cacao. I was like, hang on a minute, it uplifts you, it changes your mood in ABCD ways. What if I added a synergistic plant to it? I could amplify that effect. So that's why I started making them. I was like, let's fuse it. And then obviously it was a nod to the way cacao was also used, because many like Mesoamerican traditions would work with, especially like your Olmecs, with mushrooms. And again, they wouldn't necessarily put the mushrooms into the cacao, but they'd consume the two at the same time for the synergistic effects. So that was a big thing for me. I was like, historically, it has been used in this way. Like, you know, herbalists, shamans, etc., know that if you combine plants with cacao, you can elevate the experience. And for me, I feel like we live in a Amazon culture where everyone wants everything now. So I was like, let me give them that hit that they drink the cacao and within 20 minutes they feel a change. It's not a slow burn, it's a I feel different now. So yeah, that's why I did it.
Yeah, I definitely feel the hit pretty much instantly when I'm doing your cacao. And also the herbs that you put in actually make it taste nicer, I think, than it's not as bitter as other cacao.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the herbs. That's
Oh,
so I put fruit extracts in it. It's a whole thing. When I made it first, the herbs made it worse. So I was kind of like, oh God, like people are gonna kill me for this. So then I that's why you'll notice with each flavor or blend I do, there's a fruit extract in that because I'll put a powdered fruit and that
got
just
you.
lifts it. And then I'll put a little bit of coconut nectar in. So a big thing for me was I think as a society, we've been really sold the idea that you have to suffer to get benefits. And that's something that people carry with cacao, especially like there's some like diehard cacao fans. Like you really have to have really bitter cacao to learn the lesson. And I'm like, I disagree. I think you can have a nice experience. Like life is to be enjoyed, not to be endured.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make this taste nice. So
And
that's what.
I really believe in that as well, because I think that not many of us are actually used to like all the pleasure and joy that we can receive. And when you sit down with your cacao, it is pleasurable. And I think once you allow yourself to receive that pleasure in the morning just from the cacao, that essence and that energy then runs into the rest of your day because you're inviting that in over being like, I want to invite in hardness and bitterness into my life. It just changes the narrative with that.
It does. And I see a lot, and this is a segue, but this is something I'm working on at the moment, especially in the spiritual space. There's a lot of suffering. If you notice, there are a lot of people who are not very, and I don't want to sound superficial, but even like from a wealth perspective, do you know what I mean? Like everyone's like, I need to be paid a pittance, I need to be, and I'm just like, I was brought up Catholic, and that was that mentality. You're closer to God if you really suffer. I'm like, why? Like I'm looking at some people and they're relaxed and they're living a good life. And then I'm looking at other people who want to be of service to others, but they can't even be of service to themselves.
Yeah.
It's just weird to me.
100%. I am so with you there. And I have been there as well, where I'm like, oh, I really want to help people. And then you do things for free. And then you're like, but I'm struggling to survive myself. So what's the point in me doing this? So I'm so with you there. We need to thrive and we can have it all. We can serve, we can help, but it's about looking after ourselves first. And we need money to live in this life, this 3D
Yeah.
world that we're in. So,
And it's funny when you introduced today, you talked about how you met me and how I gave samples for your retreat. And I laughed because I don't do that anymore. And I
yeah.
was just thinking you lucked out because you met me before cacao prices tripled. So
Mm.
now people always come and they say, I'm doing a retreat, can I have it in my goodie bag? And I'm kind of like, no, you can't have it for free because this is like gold. I'm sorry, you've got to pay something and meet me halfway. But is that also
100%.
that change of mindset that I don't have to be giving away everything to everyone? I mean, I'm happy I did for you. Like, I would never do something I didn't want to, but it's just thinking of how far I've come
Yeah.
that it's a very different situation now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a fair exchange, isn't it? And luckily, we've been able to spread the word so much. And I've recommended you to
Exactly.
so many people and helped you out at certain events and things like
I was gonna
that.
say you did stand at a trade show with me for a day.
I did. And I loved it. It was such a good experience.
Memories.
So, what I do love about you and why I feel connected to you as well is because you do have such a grounded approach to what you bring to your products, to the workshops that you're doing with cacao as well, is because you bring that scientific element to it. It makes you understand it from a logical level and also helps people understand what it actually does. But I also know there is that spiritual, energetic element to it, which I would love to go deeper into. And I know that before we started this podcast, you were saying that you're trying to move away a little bit from the woo side of it. But I think both work hand in hand as long as it's got that grounded approach. And so, obviously, I think that cacao has its own consciousness or has some sort of consciousness that you're able to connect to and connect deeper to yourself. What do you feel like it brings to you spiritually?
So, I mean, so it goes back to what I said. I think what's because I don't just work with cacao, I work with all plants. And I think plants are a conduit, it's what I said earlier, to your higher self. And so you get what you need. And so I might drink cacao, but with cacao, especially cacao is so tied to your ancestry as well. So it's not just up higher consciousness. There's this cosmology and Andean cosmology where they talk about the three worlds, and you've got the underworld, the current world, and the higher world. And the underworld is your ancestry. Current world is the present moment. Upper world is universal consciousness. And when you drink cacao, you traverse all three worlds. Um, and that's how I feel. You drink it and you connect to all the elements of you. And I feel like it's all the elements of you talking to you through this channel. And it's not just cacao, it's again, this is just my personal perspective, all plants. And I think that's where plant-spirit medicine comes from, because very often the message we're receiving is on the same theme. And so we suddenly say, oh, hibiscus is all about creativity and femininity and beauty, because that's the part of ourselves that speaks to us when we drink it. We say cacao is all about life and grounding and present moment and remembering your ancestry, because again, that's the part. So the reason why I say I don't think, I feel like everything's one, even this whole science woo thing, it's one. We
Mm.
just pick, as humans, we get very attached to a specific language and we're so in love with it, and we want to rationalize what we know. And for me, I don't care how people receive the gift as long as they receive it. And what I've noticed is if you hit them with the science, they listen. If you just randomly say random, unsubstantiated words, and it's so hard now, I've gone off track, but bear with me, because there's nothing wrong with the woo. You've got some people who are coming at it from a substantiated metaphysical, there's something there. And then you've got some people who are just making stuff up. And because there's no way to tell sometimes, especially for someone coming in, it's almost easy to say, I'm going to give you the science where we can look at evidence
Yeah.
and we can explain it with biochemistry, and you can feel reassured that I'm not a snake oil salesman. Because with the woo, you can't tell who's legit and who's not until you're really connected with your intuition. And then you can be like, this person, we're connecting. You, I feel like you're doing something interesting. So that's all it is. But I actually believe it's one. There's no
Yeah.
separation. It's the same with the religion. I actually think it's all one, and we're just obsessed with trying to make ourselves feel special and fragmenting it.
Yeah.
I haven't answered your question. I've gone on a tangent.
No, you have. I just, you absolutely have. I think it's a perfect answer because it's what cacao brings spiritually and energetically to you, and you've said it basically connects you to your higher self and brings you answers through connecting to that. So
It gives you what you need. I say for all
yeah,
plants, I say you'll get what you need. You'll sit with some people with plants, they'll be like, nothing happened. You're like, I mean, something happened. It was just quieter than what happened for that other person. You get what you need for where you're at. You just have to open and listen and be receptive.
yeah, and I think it's funny because I think people that want a spiritual experience by taking cacao, they expect these like explosions of things to happen, and like it just isn't that way. Like sometimes you're not meant to experience things like that. Sometimes it's really subtle, and that's exactly what you need. And I think if you have an expectation of something, then it detracts and pushes away that thing
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah. And it's what I said earlier. I do think the biggest thing with cacao is it's slow. If I look back, I've been drinking it for 2 years, almost every day. If I look back to who I was then versus now, massively different. But it's a slow thing that you look back and you're like, it's just incremental change every day, which is, again, I always recommend people to have cacao a little often instead of these giant dramatic doses once a month, because
Mm.
that's not really going to move you as deeply as having that little and then integrating the experience. Like I've more recently finished my plant medicine integration training, and that's really opened my eyes to the import. Before for that, I was thinking about that for visionaries. That was why I saw the importance of integration. And since doing that training, I've been like, oh yeah, you can actually integration is a huge part for any plant you're working with. Like if you get the changes, you get the messages, you've got to now put them, like embody them and embed them into the way you live your life. You're not just sipping. If you get anyone can drink cacao every day, it's chocolate. You can eat dairy milk all day every day and nothing shifts. But if you are getting these hits when you're drinking the cacao, you've got to action them. You've
Yeah.
got to align yourself with, whatever these messages are and live your life from that place. And that's when you start seeing the changes.
Okay, that has brought up a story that I think will be good to share then, because I obviously came, I think it was over a year ago now, last year at some point in the early year, I came to one of your plant medicine ceremonies, and you got us to taste each herb or plant that you had, and we all got to pick which one we wanted. And I remember feeling called to mugwort, and I still have no idea what that is, what it does. Obviously, I got the correct message that I needed for me. We drank the tea and then we went into the meditation. And I did have quite an experience with it. The message that I saw was me actually channeling through movement, which is what I do as a living. I teach movement to people. And then my heart space was lit up and I was talking about things that I love, which is this exact thing that we're doing right now. And then so many signs and messages were telling me to start a podcast, to start talking about these conversations that I love talking about. And then it also said that you're going to be sharing the truths of the world. And that scared the absolute shit out of me, to be quite honest. And I remember waking up being like, oh my God, what is going on? And I think I've only just made that correlation now that I've had this feeling to start this podcast. Yeah, I had that message received from going into that ceremony with you and the mugwort to them being here now. And sometimes you don't always realize or connect the dots, but it just kind of happens. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I just think that's pretty crazy that that
But
brought that up for me.
so I used to hate journaling and now I love it because it lets you see. Because if you just do it in person, if you're not taking time to reflect, you won't notice the change. But now I'm able to go back and be like, so this
Yeah,
has happened and this is how it's like, oh, so it's exactly like that at the time.
yeah.
You get the message and you don't know what to do with it. Like your higher self knows. I always say this to people, I think they think I'm weird when I'm like, my higher self is always laughing. Like I can see this eyes just laughing at everything I do. Like
Mhm.
it's not that serious. It's just a
Yeah.
game, relax. So like, because it knows what's going on. I'm here, me bumbling around like, I don't know what's happening. I'm so worried. And it's just laughing like you've got to relax. So it's the same when you get in the mugwort hit, like your higher self, mugwort, whatever you want to say, is speaking to you. It's like, I know. Like I know what's coming. She doesn't. And you've just got to go with it. And then you get to it. I do that now. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
knew, I know you knew, I know all is
Yeah.
well, but you knew.
It's
It's just
actually
it's hard to
so
explain.
funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's like the ego mind of us and this human self that we want to present ourselves as with this, which is what I felt anyway, was like so scared of the message I received. But now we're here over a year later and I'm just naturally doing it. And it's because
Doing it.
you're just taking one step in front of the other, I think, when you're connected to
Yeah.
yourself in that way, and it just
Yeah,
naturally unfolds. So I
it
think,
does.
yeah, I think what's great is that if you feel called to doing plant medicine, go for it. If not, it's not your path. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think just continuously following the breadcrumbs to what you feel called
Absolutely.
to is the most important thing.
Yeah, I do. And I say your high spell self speaks to you through different modalities. For me, I've had a big connection with plants. Other people, for example, I tried to get into yoga. I
Mm.
just couldn't. And for years, I really beat myself up that there was something wrong with me because I didn't like yoga. And it took me a while to be like, that's not your mode of communication. Because
Yeah,
I was fine with meditation. I'm fine with the plants, but yoga, I was like, it's like everyone gets, some people work with sound, some people work with movement, some people work with plants. Like find the thing that speaks to you and enjoy it
yeah.
because we're all unique and everyone's not supposed to work in the same way.
100%. And I love going on that journey of that exploration to see what you resonate with the most. And to be honest, I've loved most things. Like I incorporate so many different things into what I do, but it's just what you feel called to, as you say. And
Yeah.
you are the expert of plants. And I just absolutely love that because I don't have any idea. And I'm always messaging you every now and again, being like, I need help. I need something medical going on with my body. I need some holistic healing. What plants can you recommend?
There's definitely, thank you, but I'm definitely not an expert because there's so much to not, there's still so many situations. Someone's like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's billions of species. I don't know
Yeah.
what that is. Sorry. There's this
Yeah.
app called PlantNet that I'm like, let's PlantNet it. Let's see what that is and what it does.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely more of an expert than me anyway, but there's so many plants in the world. So it'd be hard to know every single thing. And
Yeah,
even though, I teach yoga or movement, like I don't know everything about it. We can't possibly know. And if we pretend to know everything, then something's not quite right there, is it?
exactly.
Amazing. Well, where are we? I think this is a good time to wrap it up, unless there's anything else you feel like you'd like to share, because I know that you're starting to take a bit of a pivot with your business and you're starting to do more in-person workshops, which I think is amazing to connect people to cacao and plants. Tell us more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm focusing a lot on education, like self-empowerment, self-reliance is a big thing for me. I feel like people get too reliant on the power being outside of them. So, fun fact, you know this, Eight Within. So my company, business, whatever you want to call it, it's called Eight Within, and it means infinite wisdom within. And I came up with this name. I saw it in a meditation years ago. But I remember doing like my branding for my for all the cacao products, and the designer was like, doesn't say cacao anywhere. At that, it's what you said about knowing. At that time, I said this isn't just about cacao. Like cacao's an entry point to something bigger, and for me, it's about unlocking the wisdom we have within. So I really want to help people know that they have the power within them. It doesn't lie outside of themselves. And so education is a big thing for me. I really want to help with teaching people how to work with cacao and different plants for elevating their life, but also for supporting others. You know, there's a lot of yoga teachers, meditation teachers, breathwork teachers, coaches I'm finding a lot now that actually want to become very multifaceted in their approach, but they don't know how. And they're now asking me about cacao and plants. And I'm like, yeah, I see this as a thing. Like, let's figure out a way to, everything doesn't have to be separate. Let's figure out a way to, you want to support someone. And if that person needs a little bit of sound healing, they need a little bit of cacao, they need a little bit of yoga, why can't everything be offered to them? Why do we have to be like, nope, you only do this? So yeah, I'm trying to add an education arm. So watch this space. That'll be coming over the next couple of months.
Exciting. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
I'm 8within everywhere. So 8within.com is the website, digit 8 within, and then Instagram, TikTok as well, actually Facebook as well, but it's just 8within is the account name.
Perfect. And then something that I tend to often finish on because I don't know, I'm always connected to inner child healing, joy, all of that that it brings. What would you say to your younger self? What message do you think she'd need to hear that would resonate with you and probably maybe the audience as well?
There's not,
Take your time.
I know what it is because I say this to everyone. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Like the only thing that's wrong is the idea that there's something wrong with you.
Mm.
Like you're good, you're perfect.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for joining me today and spreading your absolute love for cacao and 8within your business. And I will link it below so that people can go and buy it. I'm going to be buying some more because I'm almost run out as well. And just, yeah, thank you for sharing your scientific and spiritual wisdom. It's been really beautiful to chat with you. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you again soon for another episode in a couple of weeks' time. Take care.